So I've been looking around the studio and everything's kind of a mess in here. I think quarantine has kind of forced me to rethink and reorganize a lot of things since I can't really go anywhere. So I've done kind of a little refresh on the interior of the studio. That video is coming very soon. I've also been getting my digital house in order, and for that, I've been using Notion. If you're like me and you've tried Notion initially and you were completely confused by this interface where you click new page and you see this blank canvas, I'll help you get up to speed and get beyond that. I think it takes about a day or two to really start getting comfortable with some of the tools here. You can see there's a lot of different pages that make up this Notion workspace, but every one of them is one of these four things. It's either an agenda or a calendar, it's a task list or some kind of a database list, a project track, and then some form of a wiki. So Notion is great at visually organizing information and kind of collecting it into a container and making sense out of all of that. The basic building block in Notion is a page, and that's where we are right now. So this would be a new page. And inside of a page, you can insert almost anything. So a page is a container for all of these different elements, whether that's text or other pages or to-do lists or lines, emojis, databases. That's another term we're going to talk about. Kanban boards, calendars, images, videos. The list goes on and on. But don't be confused by the sheer number of things you can insert into this page. We're going to use it for a couple of different things. And the best place to start here is just by experimenting with some of the tools. So the basic tool right here is text. So if we want to develop a weekly agenda, there's a couple of ways we can do it. We can start styling this page, so we can rename it the weekly agenda. And I divide my days between making and managing. Here, let's just add a to-do list so you can see how we might create a task list, task 2, and it's fairly easy to copy these items around. All the standard commands that you would use in your operating system apply here, including undo. So we could add some styling to this. Maybe we want to make this a heading. So let's make this a heading 2. And maybe we want to add a divider line in here to give some extra graphic punch here. And then we could, let's reorder this line here. Let's duplicate that. We can drag this over here. So you can see once you start experimenting with this interface, how easy it is to manipulate things and get it looking the way you want it to look. It's a fairly minimalist interface. You can change the font here between 3 versions, so not much to choose from, but that's okay because you have nearly infinite choice everywhere else. So we could style this to look very similar to what I have here in the background. Now the other option is when you create this new page, you can start pulling from Notion's vast resource here. It's a menu of templates. So I've just come in here under the personal heading, chosen weekly agenda, and I select use this template. But you can see, you can create life wikis, habit trackers. You can use this as a note taker. You can set it up to write blog posts in here, a travel planner. One of the best ways to begin is just to start experimenting with some of these templates. That's essentially what I did for my weekly agenda. Now, the way I would use this in practice is on Sundays, I typically come into the previous week's schedule, and that is always favorited. So you can see here, if you click favorited, it'll show up in this top box here in your workspace. And what I'll do is I'll hit the 3 buttons and I'll simply duplicate last week's schedule and I'll copy that down into my archive. Okay, so I have a copy and a record of everything that I've done year to date. So if I need to reference anything, it's easy to do. The second thing I'll do is start mapping out the week ahead. So I'll take any tasks that were left undone from the previous week and I'll prioritize those so they're not dropping off the list, but they're reprioritized to this week. So then I begin crafting the schedule, and as I work through the week and I tick off the check boxes as tasks are complete, I can see all the things that are done. Now, some other things you can embed on this page are calendars. So if you're someone who likes to work from a calendar, a heads-up display, you can easily add new calendar appointments and tasks in here. Set your calendar up here just like this. Now there are many other things we can actually embed in here, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Let's delete this since I'm not going to be using it this way. So Notion ends up being this great container to organize information. And this is information that may, in the past, have lived on hard drive or on a set of sticky notes or in someone's sketchbook or even in someone's head. But we want to get that on paper and organized. So what I say is if I'm doing it more than once or I have to constantly be referencing a certain type of information, I'm always going to create an SOP for it. And you can see I just have a little checklist here for what an SOP should ideally include. So we have SOPs for things like video content. We have our brand assets up here. We have a marketing SOP, which has a whole host of resources in it. So there's passwords, affiliate links, and each one of these link out to another part of Notion. So this is another way to visually organize and catalog all this information. So for the Architect and Entrepreneur course, I have all of my brand assets associated here. So if I need to share this out or if I need to upload it to another location, I can just find it here. I don't need to go onto Dropbox or onto my LaCie hard drive to find that. It's all gathered and collected in one place. And these SOPs don't have to happen all at once. You can build them over time. So this is a good example of one I created recently. I got a new printer in the office and I set it up and I had trouble setting it up on the network. And I thought, wow, if I have to do this again, I'm going to spend a lot of time Googling this information. So I'll just write out a simple checklist for how to complete these steps. And then also, when I got ready to print this, I thought to myself, wow, this is kind of complicated and I may not remember the exact steps or the order that I'm doing it in. So I'm just going to document it right here. I opened Notion, I created a new page. I just call it a printing SOP. And then I just took a screenshot of all the settings. So when I need to reference this at a later time, I'm ready to print, I just open this up. Everything's pre-baked and all set right here. You can also see how I have it sort of visually organized in this one. So I'm collaborating with other people who are helping me, produce these products. And so we have a task list set up in here. We have some active projects. We have things that we're planning, things that we need to revise. We have certain issues that we need to address. So things we're fixing, consultations. The options are endless here, but this is just a nice container to hold all of this information. The problem with task lists that I've had is some live on a sticky note, some live in a sketchbook, there's a note on my phone, there's an email, it all lives in different places, and then it never sort of finds its way into the proper location. So I kind of have to keep it all juggled up here in my head or constantly be moving sticky notes from here to the trash. Inefficient system, right? So I wanted to create an intelligent task list in here. And you may be looking at this saying, wow, this is kind of a jumbled mess. And if this looks like your head, I feel sorry for you. But I want to explain to you how this works. This is the master list that I have. So this is every task that's in the office, due dates, projects, priorities, all this stuff. But it's confusing. We'd never come in here to try and find out what the next task to be done was, right? It's just too confusing. What we want to do is take these tasks and start sorting them into buckets. So for me, I have a number of different buckets in the office. So I have different buckets for projects. So say I have 2 or 3 different buckets for projects. Then I have a bucket for general office tasks. And now I actually have a bucket for home tasks. And you'll see in the workspace here that I have a home dashboard. So I want to filter all of these tasks and be able to triage them into these different buckets. So the way we do this is we use one of the other fundamental building blocks in Notion, and that's the database. So we click New Page, and you'll see the Untitled is up at the top here. Instead of just clicking in here and creating a page, we're going to create a database table. Now the table here, we're going to call it the task list new, okay? So as we're creating this table, we need to determine which attributes we want to assign to the tasks, and those attributes are the things that are going to help us sort these tasks into these different buckets. So for a task, we probably want to assign it a project, right? Okay. And then we probably want to also give it a date. Dates are important when we have tasks, so we know when they're complete. And then I'm going to also recommend we use a multi-select, and this just allows us to add different tags to this task. A task can only belong to one project, right? One project at a time. It can only have one due date, but it may have multiple tags. So for example, I may be going on a site visit, but I also may need to assign that site visit to an intern who's going to help me film. So it may have an intern tag, and it may also have a YouTube tag because that also wants to show up on a YouTube task list because that's content we're making. So tags, this just allows us to add more than one field in here. And then the last thing I'll add to this is a checkbox. So we want to be able to note when this task is complete. And I'm just going to move the checkbox over here. I kind of like to have that over there. And I'll probably move the date right here. And this all looks good. And you can see it's infinitely adjustable. And it's also dynamic in the sense that we could come back later and add another field to this, even after we've created this table. So this table, then we start adding tasks. And we start assigning dates that they're due. And then we're going to assign it a project. And here, to get your projects in here, we simply just type the project. This is home. This is 30 by 40. And then the tags, let's just say this is financial. We want to review a budget. This one we can call cleaning. We need to clean something. And then for the office, we'll just call this marketing, okay? So let's come back into the agenda, and let's just say we want our agenda to include all of the tasks that are coming up in the next week. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a linked database, and that's just going to allow us to insert our task list in here. Okay, so let's find our task list. There's our tasks, and you'll see it comes in as this big giant ugly thing. Okay, let's get our done box over here. So now what we need to do is we need to filter this information. And the way you do that is click the three dots here and you filter the view. And we're going to add some filters. So the first filter we're going to add is going to be related to the date. So we want the date to be after today, but we also want it to be probably before 1 week from now. Okay? Now we've taken a pretty unwieldy set of tasks and we've filtered it based on things that are coming right up. Now I can see there's something that's already complete on this list, so we actually do want to add another filter. And that filter is going to be to only show those tasks where the done box is not checked. We don't need to see those tasks which are already complete, right? Taking this a step further, let's step into the project track and have a look at this to see how it differs. It's still a table, so you can see it looks just like the other table. The only difference is we've named the columns with different attributes. So we're going to be sorting these by project number, name, status, retainer, date, very similar to the previous one. Now, what's cool about this is when we dig into one of these projects here and we open it as a page, like everything in Notion is, you can see that those attribute fields stack at the top here, but we start to embed project-specific information. So I have an action item list, and this is simply a view of that master task list, and we've filtered it to show only those tasks that are related to this particular project. So project is outpost, and the done box is unchecked. The cool thing about this is this page contains a host of other embedded information. And you can see we're starting to use all of the tools available to us within Notion. So we're embedding a video, and this could just be sort of rendering walkthrough. We have some imagery. We have items that are in progress. There's a couple of looms that I've embedded. So these are recent looms, which I've sent the client and I'm waiting for feedback on. So I have checklists for the contractor and the engineer. We have project resources. So these are all things that normally we'd have to go and sort of dig up. We'd have to find the schematic design folder or find out the most current set of specifications or the current floor plans. Not so here. We can take all of that information and house it in this one interface. And then we can actually share this out either to our client. We can copy the link here and share it to our client, or we can share it to other collaborators. Or if we have team members who are sharing our workspace, they can access all this information and comment on it and update it real time as well. So some of the other things I've embedded in here, I have a project map, okay? So if I wanted to share this with a collaborator, all I do is copy the link, text it to them, shoot it to them in an email and say, here's the site, and then they can use that to navigate. We also have embedded floor plans. So you can see here, I've just uploaded the PDF because what I found is everyone's always asking for a PDF of the floor plan, whether it's a vendor or the contractor or a subcontractor or a code official. And so having it here allows me to just copy the link and share it out that way. Separate design, code checklist, All of these things can be baked in right here and pulled in from the remote places where you would normally store them. We're going to take one more step into the sort of advanced realm and start looking at meeting notes. This is an embedded view of another database or table. And you can see we've filtered this embedded database, this linked database, by the project. So here we're just saying we only want to show meeting notes that are related to this particular project. And furthermore, we could filter these meeting notes to only show those meeting notes where the phase is, let's say, construction documents. So if we knew we were looking for a particular set of meeting notes, then we could filter it that way. Easy to remove and also easy to set up views here. I'm not going to get into how to create views at this point. This interface is so rich with possibility and options that it's hard to know where to stop. If we come into each one of these meeting notes, I'll show you sort of an added benefit and bonus in here. So we come into our client meeting in here and we can set these up to be pre-populated and sort of pre-formatted, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But you can see each one of these meeting notes is just rich with information. So you don't have to go and open up Word and find the last meeting template. It's all right in here. It's all at your fingertips, and it just makes you faster and more efficient. So you can see we just have everything that we discussed here and then some follow-up action items. And even on these, we can assign people. So I've tagged Eric Reinhold. But if you have a larger team, you can tag them, and then you can even set reminders like the next meeting is here. We're starting to create this data set which is talking to other things within Notion, and it's kind of gaining its own intelligence. One last thing to talk about before we leave the meeting notes here is we can set up templates for this. So that's what I was just showing you. If we come into the weekly construction template, I want to create my construction meeting for 06/29/20. because it tells me to change the title to include the date. And then I come in here and I say, okay, this was for the Outpost project, great. And then I can list the participants here. We can list the phase that this was in. So it's just picking from these selections. And then I start filling in all the prompts. So what time was it? What was the temperature? What was the precipitation? We want to fill out the weather, work that's in progress, new work, issues we discovered, and then action items. So this is the template that we can use for every one of our construction meetings. And I have these set up for client meetings, design charrettes, consultant coordination. You can set as many as you prefer. So as we get to the design phase template, this is a Kanban board view. So you can see this is very similar to Trello if you're used to working with that. And these act like cards. So this is just a checklist moving from pre-design all the way through construction observation. So this can be baked into the project template. So every time we create a new project, all of this information will come in with it. And then inside of each one of these, what's cool is each one of these is a page, and we can embed information within that. So if I click this will bring me to the most current design process guide, and we need to send that to the client. So that's helpful to have here. Site survey, there's always things I'm asking from my surveyor. So I'm just going to embed that in here. And that way, when I'm ready to send the email to him, I just copy this, paste it in there, and then I can get a proposal from him. Same thing with programming. You're always using a program worksheet. Why not embed it in here? That way, when you start a new project, it's right there. We have our room size guidelines. That's a PDF that comes with this. We have a code analysis. So there's a code checklist. That's another SOP within the whole database here. We have permitting procedures, authorization letters. We have our contract and our proposal. So this is our current contract. These are our current terms and conditions. We have a place to set your hourly rates. We have an outline spec, so we're just gonna embed the outline spec template right in here. And this is where it shows up. Same thing with the punch list, schedule of values, invoice review, SOPs. So as we come back into the project track, let's just say we want to create a new project. All we do is press the down arrow, new project template, and this pulls in all of that information we were just looking at. And the only things left for you to do are give it a title, a project number, a client, and assign these sort of high-level tags, okay? But then everything else is in here and baked into this. Site documents, checklists, map, code analysis, all these things we were just discussing. So you can see how much time this can actually save you. So once you get a feel for the UI and the basic interface here and the real power of these databases and creating little wikis, you'll probably start using it everywhere. So You know, if we come into my home dashboard for a minute, we have a view of that master task list, and I've just put a filter on it to filter for home and everything but reading, because, you know, I have these other tags here of things that I want to read. So I have a master list, and, you know, as I click these off, they sort of disappear from the list. That's always gratifying, isn't it? I'd like to just do the task like that. That would be super fun. Sand my kitchen counters. Done. No, it's not that easy, unfortunately. But, you know, this last table down here, obviously, you can take this as far as you want, but I have a little reading and listening list, because what I was finding was people were recommending podcasts to me or something that I should read, and I would write it down somewhere or leave it in my phone, and then eventually I'd just forget about it if I didn't put it on a list right away. And so now that Notion is on my phone, it's on my iPad, I have it with me because of the mobile app, I can just add it to that at any point, and I can start adding other tags too. So if I'm looking for a podcast, I can filter this view by podcasts. You can actually start using them for things like travel. So here I have a travel log, and each one of these is a page, and that brings me to all my reservations and linked files and information that I have for each one of these. I'm just getting into this, and I'm starting to see that I'm probably not going to be leaving. And you can see right here, Evernote import. That should suggest to you that I am definitely moving away from Evernote. If all of this has felt just a little bit overwhelming to you, I've made my templates available. So check the cards in the description down below if you want to see how to get those. And otherwise, good luck building out your Notion. That actually is a lot of fun. And I'm excited to show you what I've done in the studio, the kind of little refresh I've done in here. And I promise I won't make you wait very long for that. That's coming up very soon. All right, cheers, my friends. Take care. Be safe out there.